House of the Dragon Season 3 Episode 3 is called Rhaenyra Triumphant because Rhaenyra has taken the throne and everything is awesome and easy now. Except being ruler means you have to deal with problems, some of which you don't care about, and important people want things from you, and you're still a human with a body, and some asshole ghost keeps following you around with a gong. So this episode is doing something HOTD has never done before. It's almost entirely from a single character's point of view, really putting us in Rhaenyra's head as we follow her first few days as queen. Throughout the episode, Rhaenyra struggles with the perception of her legitimacy.
It is a matter of legitimacy. It is a matter of legitimacy.
And working out what kind of ruler she's going to be, while dealing with limited resources. Her position as ruler is on shaky ground due to a lack of a legitimizing ceremony. She doesn't have a queen's guard. She's confronted with her own hypocrisy on the matter of legitimate children, and speaking of illegitimate children, her captive half-brother is... oh wait, no, he's blonde. He's the real deal. In the Reach, Daemon secures the surrender of Aemond Hightower's army, and he takes Aemond's ward hostage, Viserys and Alicent's youngest son, Prince Daemon Targaryen. Daemon the definitely. Rhaenyra is overwhelmed by people, so she walks into a room with her ex, her best friend, her stepmother, her codependent, her situationship, and her war rival, and says, "Hi Alicent, fuck you, where's my money?" Also, Helaena is there. Whoa, don't look at me like that, that's weird. Alicent doesn't know where the money is. Back in Season 1, just after Viserys died, Tywin Lannister said he was dividing the treasury and moving it out of King's Landing. Alicent and Rhaenyra have so much history between them. You killed my dad. Yeah, well, you fucked my dad. Your husband killed my grandson, your son killed my son, and so on. Right now, it's just too much to navigate, and they just want to argue and shout at each other. They have to slowly work at communicating effectively with each other again. They have to rebuild their relationship. Alicent asks Rhaenyra to send Otto's remains to Old Town. This is something Rhaenyra can do, creating common ground between them. Eventually, Rhaenyra asks Alicent for advice. She's the only living person who's ever actually ruled the kingdom before, for years as Viserys' health declined. Alicent isn't free. She is literally bound to her chambers, but she is free from the confines of political expectations and subterfuge. She's free to be honest with Rhaenyra, telling her that being queen will change her and force her to do things she could never imagine. Rhaenyra rebels against this.
I acknowledge the struggle, but I dispute that I must become what I am not.
And insists that Viserys didn't change. Alicent says that's because Viserys didn't live in the real world. He never actually ruled as king.
Your father lived in a world of his own construction. You and I have never set foot there.
Viserys spent much of his life in a literal fantasy land of his own creation. In this episode, Rhaenyra is often looking off into the distance, waxing poetic, thinking about the past. She sees ghosts and refuses to engage with the people and problems in front of her. She compares herself to past kings. She's denying reality, like Viserys did. Rhaenyra decides to send Daemon to the wall. By forcing him to join the Night's Watch, he renounces his noble life and cannot marry, father children, or inherit lands. It's the only viable alternative to killing him. Alicent wants to see her son one last time before he goes, and immediately recognizes that she doesn't recognize him. That's not Daemon, it's a random kid Aemond threatened and hairstyled into pretending to be Daemon. More like Darrent, am I right? Haha. Rhaenyra laments that she didn't know about hair bleach 18 years ago, and also that she's been had. Aemond's scheme fooled her, buying him a few days to recuperate. This war isn't as over as Rhaenyra thought. Helaena asks Rhaenyra if killing Otto helped with her grieving Jace speedrun. Maybe Helaena is wondering if violence will make her feel better about losing her son. Rhaenyra stands before her father's bed, reminiscing about the times before this struggle. She's daydreaming in her own world when she's interrupted by her own victory. The Hightowers have surrendered. There are things to do now and 6 queendoms to rule. But Rhaenyra is haunted.
The air is thick with ghosts.
And she doesn't know what to do with Darrent. Daemon argues to execute the boy, but Rhaenyra considers the boy's innocence. She's trying to uphold her father's merciful, peaceful legacy.
I must justify my father's faith in me.
But Rhaenyra is fractured, pulled between the material world and the emotional world of her grief. Seeing the ghost of Jace, she becomes enraged.
Why should I not kill him? Why should I not strike him as my own sons were stricken.
And paranoid.
There are mountains to be dealt with, and I have none yet to trust with them.
Other ghosts haunt the Red Keep too. Otto's ghost is a continued strain on Alicent and Rhaenyra's relationship.
You killed my father.
Are you still mad about that? The ghost of Aegon's rule is the source of domestic problems.
Ah, yes. Aegon hanged all the rat catchers.
It seems rats have eaten through a large store of candles.
The rats are a constant reminder of the ghost of little Jaehaerys, and the reckless violence Rhaenyra is capable of enacting in her rule if she isn't careful. Even Vaemond Valarian's ghost makes a brief appearance, in Corlys's words.
Her children are bastards!
Your son Joffrey is a bastard. Your son Lucerys was a bastard.
Your son Jaehaerys lived and died a bastard!
So much of George R.R. Martin's work is concerned with the repercussions of the past. Tyrion Lannister thinks to himself, "We are puppets dancing on the strings of those who came before us, and one day our own children will take up our strings and dance on in our steads." Rhaenyra is dancing on the strings of these ghosts. What strings is she setting up for the people who come after her? Rhaenyra is getting ready for her first big day on the throne. Aw, ain't she cute? And Alinda Massey is back! Yay! Rhaenyra doesn't want to wear jewels.
I will wear no needless ornament.
She doesn't want to appear frivolous or easy to dismiss or, as she sees it, too feminine. She wonders about wearing a sword, though Alinda counsels that it might be a tad aggressive, so what about this sick chain instead? And then Rhaenyra's period starts, because of course it does. She is again confronted by the confines of her body in relation to the expectations of state.
I may appear to have the weak and feeble body of a woman, but I possess the heart and spirit of a king.
This isn't the first time her body has betrayed her like this. In Season 1, just after Rhaenyra has given birth to Joffrey, her boobs leak in a small council meeting because she just performed the miracle of childbirth. These inconveniences could be minor hindrances if only Rhaenyra were able to talk about them openly, but because they signify femininity, this patriarchal society interprets these normal bodily functions as weakness, and Rhaenyra as someone unfit to rule because of them. Rhaenyra views these as an obstacle to the perception of her legitimacy. Her body is in the way of her politics. Daemon knights the dragon seeds, Ulf, Hugh, and Adam. Ulf wants to be called Ulf Targaryen, but that's ludicrous to Rhaenyra. She can't be seen as elevating bastards to the rank of high houses. Hugh understands the assignment and gives himself an epic name.
I'll go by Hammer.
And Adam doesn't get a choice. Rhaenyra styles him Adam of Hull, even though his father Corlys asked her to legitimize Adam and his brother Alan as Velaryons. So Rhaenyra looks to the sword as a way of conveying the strength and masculinity necessary to be a legitimate ruler, and Rhaenyra tells the High Septon that her dragons make her legitimate. Despite this, she doesn't extend that legitimacy to her dragon riders themselves. How is this going to make them feel? Side note, what did Rhaenyra think this dinner was about before Corlys said they were his sons? Private dinner with my hand, my new dragon rider who looks suspiciously like my ex-husband, and his brother Abubakar Salim from the underrated cult hit Raised by Wolves? Sure. Corlys has lost everything for Rhaenyra. His wife Rhaenys died for her. His home is in ashes because of her war. His fleet is destroyed. He even believes that she had his son Laenor killed. And Corlys has never asked Rhaenyra for anything until now, this one simple word that would give a lost old man who keeps almost dying some security. So of course, when she says no, he's enraged. Rhaenyra is relying on Adam as proof of her own legitimacy sent from the gods to give her power, but she refuses to legitimize Adam, and she's been parading her own bastards around for decades, saying that they're Velaryons. It's like an Ouroboros of bastards and deific justification. But if Rhaenyra breaks this circular logic by raising up a Velaryon bastard, then her heir, Joffrey, a fake Velaryon bastard, loses his legitimacy, and with it goes Rhaenyra's. Hey Corlys, remember decades ago when your wife Rhaenys told you that your gay son is going to have trouble in this marriage with the heir to the realm, and you said, nah, this is kinda your fault. Rhaenyra needs the legitimacy of a coronation, but there's no money.
In terms of money, We have no money.
So she asks the head of the faith, the High Septon, to anoint her in the sight of the small folk. He's a stickler for the rules though, and won't play ball until he's seen Aegon's corpse. This man named Aegon king, and he was there when, Meleys killed all those people. So his opposition to both Rhaenyra personally and dragons generally are grounded in his experiences. In the shadow of a giant statue of Rhaenyra's dad, the High Septon challenges her legitimacy in every way. He denies her the public anointing she wants to appear legitimate to the common people. He says dragons aren't messages from the gods, but in fact demonic, lizardly abominations created in sin. Hey man, I like your dress, but you'd better watch what you say about my son. Don't listen to him, boy. You're an angel. Later, Mysaria tells Rhaenyra that her legitimacy will come from the people themselves, not the faith.
This will be all answer.
What the High Septon tells Rhaenyra about the dragons is nothing new to her.
They destroy, but they do not create. There is no good that can come of them.
The idea that we control the dragons is an illusion.
Rhaenyra's small, microscopic council is divided. Corlys is her hand, and when you sit on your hand or whatever and it falls asleep, that's Corlys.
Lord Corlys.
I defer to the Queen.
Mysaria is her mistress of whisperers. Oh, I'm sure. And Daemon is her Daemon. Everyone needs a Daemon. Orwyle is technically still the Grand Maester, but Rhaenyra doesn't trust him, so he's not on the team yet. And they're not using the council balls, so does this even count? Is this a legitimate council? Oh, aren't themes fun? Daemon and Mysaria compete not only for Rhaenyra's heart, but also for the tone of her reign. While Rhaenyra is concerned with legitimacy and stability, political and otherwise, Daemon, being Daemon, wants fire and blood. Incinerate the high towers, execute this kid, hop on our dragons and go conquer China.
Dawn could be ours, and then Essos and the free cities, Yiti and its riches.
Mysaria, being a champion of the common people, wants bread and justice. To that end, after Rhaenyra hears a petition from, oh my god, it's Sylvie, hi, about the wealthy people of the city hoarding food from the poor, she hosts a banquet because that's what Viserys would do. And for dinner, we're having, I don't think Viserys would do that. Rhaenyra offends a host of minor nobles and merchants by serving them rats, and also by breaking into their houses and taking all the food they kept. It's a flashy stunt, and it makes the poor happy, for now at least, but the wealthy are powerful, and don't like it when you break into their house. Torren Manderly, this episode's new guy, reminds Rhaenyra that it was her blockade that made food scarce to begin with. Anyway, Rhaenyra's now alienated her hand, every minor noble and merchant in the city, the Pope, and potentially 3 dragon riders she utterly depends on, all in a day's work. Rhaenyra doesn't want to sleep in her own chambers, in Viserys' bed, which for so many years was his sickbay. Viserys' ghost still sleeps here. The ghost of Alicent's innocence still sleeps here. So she goes to Daemon's bed for a little cuddle. Daemon always responds to Rhaenyra's problems with actions, not words. Going to war, killing people, conquering stuff. His mind is firmly in a violent, material world. Rhaenyra can't confide in him.
Dreams didn't make us kings. Dragons did.
So while Daemon is a physical comfort to Rhaenyra, she still doesn't get much sleep, if any. Mysaria, however, seems to be someone Rhaenyra can actually talk to. She tells Mysaria about her internal conflict concerning Daeront, caught between personal morality and political stratagem, and she doesn't do this with Daemon. Rhaenyra's intimacy with Mysaria, emotional and physical, broke her out of the confines of men telling her to do nothing and then getting mad at her about it. Mysaria believes in Rhaenyra as a leader, as someone worthy of wielding a sword. Daemon asks Rhaenyra what she's going to do with her power. Viserys shunned his power,
but he renounced his dragon.
And Daemon wants Rhaenyra to embrace hers. She can sit in King's Landing and bicker about candles and wine and bastards and legitimacy, or she can take flight and conquer the world by flame. That's what Daemon wants, and Rhaenyra has mentioned wanting to fly off on Dragonback. Rhaenyra basically has the freedom to do whatever she wants now, but she chooses to stay and administer her city. To get her husband out of her hair, she sends Daemon off to deal with stuff in the Vale. Daemon sulks a little, but he accepts and reminds Rhaenyra that she might not be completely free to make her own choices.
You still have to kill Darren.
Even at the top of the system, politics still makes demands of you. Rhaenyra finds a little bird made by Darrent. A flying bird was a symbol of freedom to Alicent last season, and Alicent strove for her freedom by abandoning political power. Is Rhaenyra actually free? And where is this kid's wood supply coming from? Rhaenyra and Mysaria go on a little date. PR stunt. Since the first episode, this wheelhouse has represented returning to conformity after the freedom of flight. It looks like an ornate cage, and it is a cage for Rhaenyra, Alicent, even Aegon, trapping them in the expectations of society and family, the personal and political. It separates the ruling class from the people they serve. Previously, Alicent and Helena used it as a shelter from the small folk. Now, Mysaria and Rhaenyra use the imagery of leaving the cage of politics to feed the people. Rhaenyra's feelings are caged.
You have buried your grief.
But she denies her grief and calls it rage.
I feel no grief, I feel nothing.
Well, no, there is rage.
Hey, Rhaenyra, babe, that's grief. But it billows beyond her grasp. She feels confined with no outlet for her emotions. One of the dragon keepers who was tending to the actual Darren's dragon, Tessarion, shows up at the Red Keep, looking like he just crawled out of a volcano. He tells Rhaenyra that Ormond and his army have captured the city of Tumbleton, a large market town not too far from King's Landing. Rhaenyra says, "My arm is long. She can grasp her rage, and her enemies will burn for deceiving her and prolonging the conflict." But the people of Tumbleton are innocent, held hostage by Ormond. Earlier, Hugh told Rhaenyra that his wife, Kat, is in Tumbleton now, and Sylvie reminded Rhaenyra that she came to power as a champion of her people. So the essential question is, will Rhaenyra do a Daenerys at Tumbleton? The story is tugging at all the things she cares about. Is Rhaenyra a stable, stalwart steward, or a tyrant who rules by threat of dragon fire? Will she justify her father's faith in her, or will she embrace her dragon? Rhaenyra's grief has been informing her decisions since episode 1, and her loved ones keep dying. She is surrounded by ghosts and drowning in grief, awash in dilemmas and deficiencies. Somehow, this introspective concept episode / anxiety film still has time to show me 4 dragons, so that's pretty cool. If you'd like to hear me talk about it for an additional 6 hours, that's what Dragon Time is, the podcast I have with Alt Swift X. You can like and you can subscribe, those were always options.